This is so weird. So during the sentencing hearing, he was upset with the judge and he kept saying, "Your Honor, you need to step down." For 30 minutes straight. "Your Honor, you need to step down. Your Honor, you need to step down." And they had him gagged with cloth and duct tape. Even after being gagged, Cullen continued to repeat the phrase. That is how Judge Platt gave him an additional 6 life sentences.
Oh my gosh.
Healthcare horrors. Murder.
Welcome back to another episode of Healthcare Horrors. I'm Ashley, a brand specialist, and with me today is...
I'm Alicia Carasella. I'm your veteran training and development specialist. And Ashley, it's so funny. Sometimes you say your last name and sometimes you don't.
I know. I've noticed that. I'm like, am I going to say it this time? No.
Nah.
And I'm Dolan, since you both looked at me at the same time.
He's fidgeting over there.
On the knobs.
He never says his last name, though. He just says Dolan on the knobs.
I'm Dolan. Yeah,
Oh,
on the
he's
knobs.
the knob guy. I
He
guess he
doesn't
doesn't
even-
have to.
He doesn't even say brand
Hi.
coordinator.
Oh yeah, what's your
Event
fancy title
coordinator.
again?
I'm Dolan Knobs on the knobs. Brand event coordinator at Atlas. So yeah.
Is it Delano or Delano?
Delano.
Okay, Delano.
Yeah.
So Dolan, Knobs, Delano.
Yes.
Cool.
Dolan Knobs.
AKA DJ Knobs. Okay, this has gone too far.
My cheeks hurt.
All
right.
Last time we talked about Lucy Letby, which was a current case going on in the UK about a neonatal nurse sadly killing infants. So
Yeah, it was just sad.
it's heartbreaking, something we need to follow up on as the case unfolds.
Yeah, you can look it up. I believe most of the information's on BBC.
Yep, I found it on BBC News.
Yep.
So
All right, today we're talking about Charles Cullen, also another kind of somewhat recent case. Yeah, if you want to take it away, go for it.
every time I hear Charles Cullen, all I think of is Twilight.
Okay, me too. It's terrible.
Rough.
Yeah, and I'm like, are you Edward Cullen's brother? Dad?
Yeah.
What are their names?
Wasn't the dad's name Charles?
Entirely possible. I don't know. I
I'm
bet
gonna
it
look it
is.
up right now.
I am gonna.
We
do
need
you
to
got
know
it? I'm gonna
before
look it
I-
up.
Okay, you're gonna look it up? Okay.
Yeah, every time I hear Cullen, I think of Twilight as well. So I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No, not at all.
I was actually my entire family was into the Twilight series. I liked
Were they
it.
Team Edward or Team Jacob?
It was split. Yeah,
Alright.
it was split. But I think like pretty much everybody was Team Edward except for my sister, who Team Jacob.
I hate that we're talking about this right now.
Yeah.
We are.
That's okay.
But the dad's name was Carlisle.
Oh, but so
Carlisle.
close.
Carlisle. It was
Carlisle?
close. We were
Charles.
close. Carlisle.
Very close.
All right, let's get into the actual
All right.
murder, not the sparkly vampire.
Okay, but it's shiny. All right. Okay. So Charles Edmund Cullen was born on February 22nd, 1960. So he is a Pisces, and the strengths of Pisces are people who are compassionate, probably not, artistic, intuitive, gentle, wise, and musical. Their weaknesses are fearful, overly trusting, sad, desire to escape reality, and can be a victim or a martyr. So we'll see how and if that comes into play at all. But for now, we'll talk about his early life and kind of his background. And Charles Edmund Cullen is an American serial killer. He's a nurse who murdered dozens, possibly hundreds of patients. But I'll let Ashley talk about that part. So, like I said, he was born on February 22nd, 1960 in West Orange, New Jersey. He was raised in a working-class Irish Catholic family, the youngest of 8 children. So his father's name was Edmund. He was a bus driver. And when Charles was 7 months old, his father died. Later, Cullen described his childhood as miserable and claimed to have been constantly bullied by his schoolmates and sister's boyfriends. When he was aged 9, he made first of many suicide attempts by drinking chemicals from a chemistry set. That's really sad.
That's such an early age to think about ending your life. You're that miserable. Aw.
So his mom, her name was Florence, maiden name Ward. She emigrated from the U.S. to the U.S. from England after World War II and was killed in a car accident when Cullen was in his senior year of high school. So now both of his parents are deceased. He recalls his mother's death as being devastating and described being upset that the hospital did not immediately inform him of her death and cremated her body instead of returning it, which I think that's a big no-no.
Yeah, so he never really had a chance to say goodbye. And since he didn't have a lot of friends growing up, and just his relationship with his siblings sounded like it was awful, like his mom was kind of his best friend. And so at an early age, he had was just comforted by female presence.
So after his mom died, he dropped out of high school and enlisted into the United States Navy, where he served aboard the submarine USS Woodrow Wilson. He successfully passed basic training and the rigorous psychological, I was going to say physiological, it's psychological, send help, examinations required for submarine crews, who were expected to spend as long as 2 months at a time being submerged in a cramped vessel. I would not do that job. He rose to the rank of Petty Officer Second Class as part of the team that operated the vessel's Poseidon missiles. He did not fit in during his time in the Navy and was hazed and bullied by his fellow crewmen, which if he was a mama's boy and has always been bullied, I can see that he may have been a little more tender and sensitive than his fellow crewmates. A year into his service in the Navy, Cullen's leading petty officer aboard the Woodrow Wilson discovered him seated at the missile controls wearing a surgical mask, gloves, and scrubs rather than his uniform. He was disciplined for that action, but never explained why he was dressed that way.
Weird.
Super weird. The Navy reassigned him to a lower pressure job on a supply ship, USS Canopus. He attempted suicide and was committed to the Navy psychiatric ward several times over the subsequent years, and he received a medical discharge from the Navy in 1984 for undisclosed reasons. I think those reasons are probably pretty clear.
Did you say USS Cannabis? I'm sorry.
Canopus.
Okay.
Canopus.
I heard cannabis.
Canopus.
Continue. I'm so sorry.
No, that was a fair question.
What kind of vessel is this?
The cannabis vessel.
All right.
No, that was a fair question. So, shortly after his medical discharge from the Navy, Cullen enrolled at Mountainside Hospital's nursing school in Montclair, New Jersey. He was elected president of his nursing class, which is interesting since he's had no sort of popularity his entire life. He graduated in 1986 and started work at the burn unit of the St. Barnabas Medical Center in Livingston. During this time, Cullen met and married Adrienne Baum in 1987. They had a daughter named Shauna, the first of 2 girls, and she was born later that year that he got married. His wife became increasingly disturbed at his unusual behavior, though, and his abuse of the family dogs.
Yeah. Sad.
What?
Leave the dogs alone.
Sorry, disclosure, animal cruelty.
We didn't
have to
I didn't read
into
that
it.
part.
Okay.
In 1993, she filed a restraining order against him based on her fear that he might endanger her and her 2 children. She claimed that Cullen had spiked people's drinks with lighter fluid in adulthood, burned his daughter's books, and left his daughters with a babysitter for a week. Cullen denied these claims, saying his wife was exaggerating. Nevertheless, she continued to insist that Cullen was mentally ill, and it seems perhaps she was right.
Yep. Follow your gut. She had a gut feeling something wasn't right, and she was correct.
Well, I mean,
Messed
when you
up.
got facts, when it's happening in front of your face.
True. That too. Yeah, so when he was medically discharged from the Navy and enrolled in nursing school, like that was like a complete 180 from being surrounded by nothing but guys. And then obviously a lot of nurses where he just felt a lot more comfortable and excelled in his work. He also started nursing school at the same hospital where his mother died. So just kind of random, weird little fact. Did you have anything else on his background?
Nope, that's all I had.
After he graduated in June of 1987, he was 27 years old. He began working at Barnabas in the burn ward, which cleaning burns is a extremely painful process. So, maybe he enjoyed this because they would also kind of joke that it was the scream ward. Let's see. Yeah, Adrian's wife gives birth, so they have one daughter around that time. And I don't think he really knew how to handle being a dad, so he just kind of felt like a disappointment. And while he was in the Navy, I guess he drank a lot. He stopped drinking once he got into nursing school, but I think once his daughter was born and his marriage kind of started going south, he started drinking again.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I could see how he would not know how to handle being a dad since, unfortunately, he didn't have one.
Yeah, he didn't really have anything to go off of. He also had a hard time making friends with his coworkers, and his bedside manner just wasn't really there. John W. Yango Sr., I think, is one of his first victims. John Yango was a court judge admitted to the burn ward for an allergic reaction that caused his skin to peel and blister like a burn would. Pretty similar. Charles ended up injecting lidocaine into his IV bag. And like all medication, lidocaine can be dangerous in high doses. It's used to treat irregular heartbeats, relieve pain, and numb the skin. But it can also cause cardiac arrest. So,
could you imagine what that would feel like? Lidocaine in your veins. Nothing.
Crazy.
You would just
like just freeze, just numb. I don't know.
That's really dangerous.
Whew. So yeah, John Yango passed away, and they claimed that he died due to his just complications from the allergic reaction. Eventually, Cullen does get transferred out of the burn ward and into the critical care unit. February 11th, 1991, there was a nurse working at the facility who found an IV bag that appeared to be used. She could just tell something wasn't right with the IV bag and their like little storage unit with all the medications and whatnot. So the nurse brought it to the hospital's attention, and they take it to the pathology lab for testing, and the bag contained large amounts of insulin in it. So they don't really know who did it, but they're starting to notice like something is kind of weird here.
Put it back?
Well, that's what he did. He did a lot. That's how he could have. Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
Okay. So that was just kind of a random little fact. There's Anna Byers, a patient that was in the hospital for heart surgery, and she went to a hyperglycemic state. She was not stabilized, and she was supposed to go into heart surgery, even though she started having some medical complications that were unexplainable. They ended up removing her heparin IV drip, and then all of a sudden she was better and she wasn't having any complications anymore. Similar thing happened to another patient who started having weird random symptoms, and they removed the IV bag and they were fine. Assistant Director of Security Thomas Arnold began investigating at this hospital, and nurses started kind of catching on to what was happening. Eventually, Charles Cullen was matched with the pattern of these coding patients. When Thomas Arnold questioned Cullen was very calm and composed and just acted like he didn't really care. Charles eventually decided to leave Barnabas, though, before anything could really be proven. And this is just, he was there for 5 years and left in 1992. And this is just the beginning of hospitals starting to get suspicious, but also not taking action quickly enough because, of course, a hospital is a business and they want to protect their reputation. It's so sad. Also, at this time, of course, there's a nursing shortage. Like, when hasn't there been a nursing shortage? It's crazy. So it wasn't hard for Charles to get another job at another hospital. And even though he had a hard time making friends, he just looked really good on paper. His resume was spot on. He had a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience. So it's around this time that Adrian has their second daughter, but she starts growing more and more suspicious that something is just not right. Again, he's like torturing their family dogs. I think mixed in there's another suicide attempt. And finally, in 1993, Adrian files for divorce. At this point in time, Cullen is 33, loses custody of his girls. He moves into an apartment. He starts dating a fellow nurse. And it seems like whenever he does kind of make friends with a female, whether it's just friends or dating, he gets a little obsessive and almost like kind of stalkery.
Yeah, were they dating or was he stalking her?
I think at first, like, they were dating until she kind of realized, like, dude, you need to back up a little bit. And then he ends up, like, breaking into her house.
Yep, he did. Ugh.
Yeah. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, do you have the story of how he broke into her house?
I just have that in 1993, he wanted to quit nursing, but he couldn't because of the forced child support payments. So then he broke into his coworker's home while she and her son were asleep, but he left without waking them, and then he began stalking her, and she filed a police report. He pled guilty to trespassing and received a year of probation, and then the day after his arrest, he made another suicide attempt.
Jeez.
Yes.
And then he took 2 months off work and ended up in a psychiatric facility.
Yep. During this time off work, he undergoes therapy and counseling at Greystone. And also, all of these suicide attempts, it's hard to say if he was really trying to end his life or if he just wanted the attention. So,
I don't know. It seems like he has no wherewithal of, like, social protocol, social situations. And I'm like, yikes. Or as Cassidy in the training department would say, yikes on bikes.
Yikes on bikes.
Yep.
September 1993, he returns to work at Warren Hospital. There is a cancer survivor named Helen Dean that he injects with digoxin. I was going to say something else. Digoxin. He injects this directly into her leg. So at this point, he's been putting everything in insulin bags or some sort of drips. And I think this might be the only patient, or at least the first patient, where it's like physical. He touches the patient and injects her.
Sounds like that time away, like, made that impulse much stronger. And so he didn't care.
Yeah.
He was, like, reckless about it.
Yes. And I'm struggling with this word. Digoxin. Oh my gosh. Digoxin is used to regulate the heart rhythm.
Because it's kind of a weird word to say.
Digoxin. I don't know. I just keep seeing it written down and it looks
Dijon.
weird. Dijon. He's not injecting people with mustard.
But I think that would also do the trick.
Yikes. Yikes.
Yikes on bikes?
Oh, okay. Here we go. So in Helen Dean's post-mortem, there was not a screening for digoxin, so her murder goes unnoticed.
But the son did protest, and they did give Cullen a lie detector test.
Did he pass it?
And he did pass.
Oh.
Yep, he did. And so because the son said, like the woman who he injected said that a nurse that wasn't assigned to her came into her room and injected her with a needle, and then she died the next day.
That's right.
Yep. So her son said that her death wasn't natural, and then they, did this lie detector test, but he passed it. So
that's right, because he was a new nurse and like asked the son to leave, and then gave her a shot really quick.
Could you be more obvious?
Mm-hmm.
Dang. That sucks. But anyways, he does continue to work there at this point.
Yeah. From 1994 to 2000, he does end up moving around to several different hospitals, overdosing patients. Again, I'm just going to assume it's probably because the hospital's like kind of starting to catch on, and he's like, it's time to move on. He's constantly slipping through the cracks, even when hospitals are suspicious.
Those background checks, they're much better now, I think. In the case of the person we did previously. I mean, there was nothing on her background to catch, but dang.
Yeah.
I think to be a nurse, you should have to take a psychological exam, or like several, maybe. You're in control of people's lives, and if we've learned anything, it's that people have no problem hurting other people when they assume a position of power, where people are vulnerable.
Finally, once he gets to Sacred Heart Hospital, though, the nurses there are automatically suspicious of him, probably from what they've been hearing from other hospitals. So he doesn't last very long there. This is a hospital in Pennsylvania, and he gets fired after just 2 weeks because the nurses just rise against him. Yeah.
That's quick.
Very quick turnaround there. And then we move on to Somerset Medical Hospital in New Jersey, where he meets Amy Loughran, a nurse that he befriends. She has atrium fibrillation, AFib, which is a heart condition. Did you watch The Good Nurse, Dolan? This is kind of where that movie picks up that John was talking to us about. So if anyone has watched The Good Nurse on Netflix, this is kind of where the movie picks up. There is a shift where Amy is struggling to breathe because she's flipping a patient over, and it's a lot of pressure on her heart. And Charles notices this. He ends up bringing her a pill, which is technically stealing from the hospital, but this medication does help her heart. So he can be compassionate. It sounds like any of these female friends he's had, he's very compassionate with right up front. This is the first friend he's had in a long time. And before we know it, though, there's patients at the hospital that start coding, including patients that aren't even under his care. So the facility decides to change the insulin protocols, which makes it a little harder for him to get insulin. So he returns to using digoxin. So he's not just injecting patients insulin bags like while they're in the room. What is that flying around?
Oh, I don't know, but I don't like it. Dolan, help.
Is that a stink bug?
Yeah, I didn't know that they could fly.
Oh, yeah. We have those like all over our backyard.
Well, don't smash it.
Yeah. Don't make it angry, otherwise it'll stink and get all musty. Anyway. Weird.
Get out.
Anyway, before the stink bug. So yes, he wasn't just injecting people's IV bags like in the rooms. He was actually going to the like storage unit where they had all the medication and the IV bags, and was inserting or injecting insulin into all of these random bags that were just getting delivered to patients.
And I'm like checking, making sure it's not flying down here, because that thing comes down
Stay
here.
away. So there was this victim, Reverend Florian J. Gall. In his post-mortem, blood work shows high digoxin levels. And that is when the facility initiates an investigation. So a whole bunch of code blues. Finally, the hospital takes action, kind of, sort of. They really drag their feet with it because they want to protect their reputation. Although there was, I would say, pretty obvious evidence that it was Cullen, the hospital ends up just firing him. So they definitely catch on to it, and they just let him go.
Well, apparently he also lied on his job application, they found out.
Yeah, and they said that was the reason that they were firing him. When they could have just had authorities take him in, but, you know.
Well, police kept him under surveillance.
November 2003, his friend Amy gets questioned by the authorities, including Detective Baldwin, who's the lead detective on the case. Amy doesn't want to believe this, obviously, but she ends up helping authorities piece things together. There were reports of Charlie constantly taking insulin or digoxin out of the storage cabinets and canceling it to avoid suspicion, but he was still getting hands on this medication. Also, having Amy, a healthcare professional, on the detective side, they were able to just make more sense out of everything, all of the paperwork and things that they might not understand, like blood sugar levels and everything that obviously the insulin affects. So she's helping them gather evidence, and she starts looking through. So at this point, Charles Cullen is no longer at the hospital, and she starts looking through his patient notes and records because he would spend a lot of time on the computer. And she realizes that in his browsing history that he was looking up the patients that weren't even his, but the patients that were coding or that he killed. At this point, he's fired. So Amy does agree to go to lunch with Cullen, and she's wearing a wire because the last part of the puzzle to put him away is they just need a confession from him because nothing is like solid enough to put him away. When they're at the diner or wherever they are in the movie, they're in a diner. So whatever restaurant, wherever they went to lunch,
Sure.
Amy is prying. His whole demeanor changes and ends up leaving without a confession. The authorities are able to arrest him and hold him on suspicion for, I think, 48 hours or something you can hold someone.
Yeah.
So during this time, Amy does try one more time to get a confession out of him, and finally she just gets him to crack, just the way she's being compassionate, which is what he wants from a female, and she's just being a friend to him. He does confess to almost 40 murders. Just starts listing off names that he remembers. I have that April 2004 is when Charles Cullen pleads guilty to all of these murders. March 2004, and if I have my dates wrong,
It's
let
March.
me know.
So he's arrested December of 2003. I don't see November 2004 he pled guilty, and then March 2006 he was sentenced.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of notes on the actual trial, which I wish I would have looked more stuff up on the actual trial. He gets sentenced to life in prison, basically, like every single murderer. He's not even eligible for parole until 2403.
Yeah, I think it's, I have the date. He's not eligible for parole until June 10th, 2388.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. So he's done.
Yeah, he's done.
Which he should be.
This also leads to laws being passed that the hospitals need to report suspicious activity. So the machine that he was using to get medication out of was called the Pyxis. Obviously, the system was very flawed because he could put in an order for medication, hit cancel really quick, but the door would still open, so you could still, even though you're saying you're canceling it, he could still take it. Currently...
Well, I was just going to say something interesting that happened at his sentencing.
Mm-hmm.
This is how he ended up with the parole date of 2,388. This is so weird. So during the sentencing hearing, he was upset with the judge and he kept saying, "Your Honor, you need to step down," for 30 minutes straight. "Your Honor, you need to step down. Your Honor, you need to step down." And they had him gagged with cloth and duct tape. Even after being gagged, Cullen continued to repeat the phrase. That is how Judge Platt gave him an additional 6 life sentences.
Oh my gosh.
Just because he wouldn't shut up.
That's why I wish I would have looked more up on the actual trial, just to see what he was like in the courtroom. That's interesting, because in the movie, there's a part where the detectives, the male detectives, are trying to question him, and he just keeps repeating the same phrase over and over and over again, "No, I can't." I think that's what he was saying, is "No, I can't. No, I can't. No, I can't," over and over again. So maybe that's just something he did. Interesting.
Yeah, and I guess his version of why he did this. Do you have anything? He told the detectives that he could not bear to witness or to hear about attempts at saving a victim's life. He stated that he gave patients overdoses so that he could end their suffering and prevent hospital personnel from dehumanizing them, even though the majority of his patients were not terminally ill.
Weird. In the movie, and again, I don't know if this is real because it's also a movie, but in the movie he just says the reason that he did this was because they didn't stop him. So, which is technically true. I mean, the hospitals caught on to him and they let him go. So, currently, Charles Cullen is serving his sentences in the New Jersey State Prison in Trenton, New Jersey. Yeah, parole. I had 2403. What did you say? 23?
2,388.
Okay. Crazy.
I mean, it could be either one, but either way, it's a long time.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's away for life.
But I think it's cool that there was some legislation that did come out of this. So Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and 35 other states adopted new laws which encourage employers to give honest appraisals of workers' job performance and provide legal protections for reporting medical errors.
Yeah. Got to do something. People need to come forward, and hospitals mainly need to come forward with stuff like this.
Yeah, so there's more than just the good nurse, I guess. So there's a documentary on Charles Cullen, Killing for Kindness is what it's called, on a channel called Sky Crime. It's a UK TV show. And then a film called Killer Nurse. So, and then The Good Nurse.
I will say, I watched the movie and then I started doing research on him. And as I was doing research, things that were in the movie started making sense. Just the weird little compulsive things he would do. Or I think there was just a shot of him and you noticed that there was a long cut down his arm. He had attempted suicide or something. But they never address certain things in the movie. There's just I guess Easter eggs, if you want to call them, just things you wouldn't really know to pick up on until you start doing research on him or know more about him.
Sure.
So,
well, now I'm excited to watch it and see what I think after putting it all together.
Definitely. And Amy Lochran is obviously did an amazing thing, and she helped put the pieces together, even though she didn't want to believe it. Poor single mom with a heart condition, which has gotten better since, and she's still just doing her thing. She's got 2 girls, and Yeah. Good stuff. Good for her.
Yeah, she's lucky she didn't fall into his trap.
Yeah, can you imagine, like, your best friend, all of a sudden you'd find out that they've been killing people and you're the only person
Can't trust
really...
anybody.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Just don't have friends. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Zodiac, do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, compassionate, artistic, intuitive, gentle, wise, musical, fearful, overly trusting, sad, desire to escape reality, victim or martyr. I can definitely see sad, desire to escape reality, victim or martyr, but compassionate, like a whole mess of those things.
Yeah, everything
And
sounded right, except the music thing.
Stirred up with the healthy side of mental illness, and boom, Charles Cullen.
There you go.
I see those videos on like Instagram or like a Pisces is made of, like, and they like the guy's like pouring water in the bowl and it's like a little splash of, you know, happiness, and then you know a little bit of compassion and
Sugar, spice, and everything nice.
Yep.
We didn't figure out who we were going to talk about next.
Nope. So this will be again one of those things that's a surprise.
It's a surprise in 2 weeks. So tune in 2 weeks and we'll be here.
Talk about somebody. We'll talk about something.
Maybe we'll have to find another older story since we've done
Get some more
recent
details.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty.
Don't do anything Charles Cullen would do.
Murder.